Hello, listeners, and welcome to today's episode of Show Me Your Prompt. My guest today has founded 6 companies, exited 3, and ran an AI lab out of MIT. He grew a national business at PwC from 40 million to 75 million and built firms serving companies like Bank of America, Amazon, Fidelity with a 9-figure exit. He's also an author of Rewired Leadership. Mark, what did I miss? What are you currently working on?
Ashley, thanks for the intro. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm doing growth consulting. I'm doing growth advisory work for startups and founders, as well as a few other companies that are looking to take that next step or that next phase in their growth.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into your AI history, story, all of it. When did you realize I need to get on the AI board?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to sell my last business that was in leadership, training, talent, workforce management to a PE roll-up in 2022. And a company that I was a co-investor in, one of the board members asked me to, as I was rolling off of that opportunity and that successful exit, they asked me to come run an AI company. And I said, I've never done AI. I certainly know about it. Back in 2022, it was just starting to take the leap with LLMs and generative AI and agentic AI. So I said, sure. So I catapulted into an MIT startup or founded company called Luminoso Technologies. That was a text analytics company that leveraged AI to help companies understand their unstructured text data. So that's really when I dove into AI and the technology and the clients and the use cases and try and understand, how to actually operationalize it or codify it to monetize it to the end users.
Okay. And then bring us up. So you told us a little bit about what you're currently working on, but from that story to now, what changed for you with AI and how you're using it?
Yeah, I mean, the landscape completely changed, right? From, even as every, never mind 6 months, but like 6 weeks or even 6 days, AI changes, the prompts change, the LLMs, adapt. So I would say, what changed was really the end user experience, right? So really LLMs have come a long way, whether it's Anthropic or Claude or OpenAI or Gemini. So, companies are understanding how to apply and how to incorporate those LLMs into their workflows. I think that's the biggest leap. But then now it's getting into, how are actually, knowledge workers or people like us using it every day to augment their workflow or what they do every day, but also not giving up the human element of making sure that they're leading the right way, they're communicating the right way, and not leaning into AI too much and letting it answer all the questions, but just leveraging it from a prompting perspective and making them more efficient, I would say.
Exactly. I want to come back to the human piece, but for now, let's jump into what's your featured prompt? What do you need AI for every day?
Yeah, so I use it in a few different ways, right? So I use it certainly from a marketing communication perspective. So I record a lot of my calls, right, and to sort of summarize a lot of those, a lot of that dialogue. I use it to help model out some of the research, some of the diagnostic work that we do at clients, right? So the upfront assessment, which is usually a heavy lift and used to be, certainly the old paradigm for management consulting firms like, Bain, BCG, they'd come in, do an assessment. We did that at a couple of my last companies. So now you can automate that through prompting and through kind of automation of that process and accelerating the output, but then bringing in other best practices or other research and information to give sort of the best solution or options for the client, to take it to the next step from a consulting and engagement perspective.
Okay. So you have your growth constraint, how I'm going to diagnose this company, what I'm doing, and doing that legwork in a much quicker way before you get started.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I certainly have been doing this business consulting for 35 years. So I feel very confident in my playbook or sort of my, my blueprint to success around how to help companies grow, scale, and exit. So I think that, using a lot of my methodology, a few of the books that I've written, a lot of my experiences working for large companies, startup businesses, when you bring all that together and then you actually leverage AI, it really sort of synthesizes and gives, again, I'm not going to say the cheat code, but really the answer or the specificity, if I say that right, to what the client's actually looking for.
Interesting. Okay. Tell me a little bit about your founder-led prompt and how you're utilizing that to produce.
Yeah, so we have a very interesting agent that we've developed to validate whether a founder's idea will resonate with the marketplace.
Unreal. So I'm like, I need to pause there for a minute. As someone who's part of a very early stage startup, I'm like, whoa, tell me more.
So I can't give you the secret sauce, Ashley, because then I'd have to, charge you.
Right. For real.
But that said, I've been involved in a lot of startups. I've been fortunate to kind of be an advisor, be a board member, coach founders, whether it's at Babson, which is my alma mater, or others. And there's certainly, what I'd call certain levers or baseline tenets of a business that will make them successful. So one of the biggest ones is product market fit, right? Yeah. So you build a product, you build a solution. What's the TAM? Who's the who's the buyer? What's the ICP? All of that sort of, we've automated that process to certainly validate that into the assessment of, hey, is my business going to work, right? You can do a lot of research. You can go to PitchBook. You can go to a lot of these platforms to see who your competitors might be, who's doing it. And what we're trying to do is build a prompt or build, I'll call it an engine to automate that process to say, hey, what's the opportunity cost, but then associated with what's the chance of this succeeding? And then what would it take for it to succeed, right? Can you bootstrap it, right? Do you need some money to leverage it? So it'll give you some coaching, I guess, some business coaching on what you need to do to kind of take it to the next step, the next step in the process. Very cool
And interesting. And then you pressure test from there with another agent. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So that's, again, so all these agents, as sort of talk to each other. So just like every business, they have different stages of growth, right? Yeah. So if it's ideation stage and it's a couple of really smart, students from undergrad or grad, and they want to build something, you can actually go there. Where I like to live is more in that more mature stage. So Series A, product market fit, they have revenue, they have customers, they have an MVP. And now we're like, okay, what is it going to take to get it from, let's say, 3 to 5 million to 50 million, right? And what's that unlock, or how do we get to the next stage of growth?
Right.
We're building this agent to help us synthesize and understand sort of what are the underlying, operational features that a company needs to get there, right? What are the investments they need to make to get to that next stage?
Very cool. All right. I'm going to recap this for everyone. This is our growth and diagnostic, our founder-led knowledge extraction, and then our opportunity and pressure test. All three agents collaborating different times of each business and clientele.
Correct. But what I will say is you need a human element, right? So you can't just rely on the agents to tell you what to do, right? So that's where my business expertise or one of my partners will come in and look at the data and look at sort of what the agents have summarized for us and say, you know what, we're going to balance that, or we're going to look at that against what we've learned doing this in business for the last 30 years and, go to the market or go to the founders or the investors or the firms that have invested in these companies and say, here's what we recommend to get to the next stage of growth.
Awesome. You stole my next thing, but let's dive a little more into the human. So what concerns do you have as you're not within your company, but as you're meeting with these startups and you're taking on new Series A's, you're concerned with AI? Like overuse, underuse, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I want to say that a lot of founders or a lot of CTOs are using these agents as a crutch, right? Like it's their co-pilot, and I get it. It should be their co-pilot, but there's still the human element, right? That you need to lead and you need to communicate and you need to execute. So I just don't think you can use the agent to do everything for you, right? Yeah. Even if you want to write email or outbound marketing, you can use it to draft, but then, put in your own personal touch, right? It sounds basic, but content is king, and people know exactly if it's AI written or if it's AI powered. So what I like to say is AI powered is okay, but you still need the human element. I wrote a book earlier this year called Rewired Leadership, and the book was about leaders, mostly in mid-sized and large companies, that need to adopt and change around AI, because now AI is in the workforce, it's in the workforce, but they still need to lead in the same way that they led, except now the information is, accessible to them a lot faster, real time. So how do they adopt? How do they change? How do they communicate? A lot of the same, styles should be there, the leadership styles, but they need to be more agile. They need to be able to move a lot faster. So the velocity of work increases, but you still need to be a strong communicator. You need to have strong EQ. You need to, be able to take feedback, give feedback. All of that doesn't change in an organization.
I would say it's even more important now, actually, that EQ and not being stuck behind. I mean, for me, it's hard to even you can go so far in the AI hole that you're like, I got to bring myself out of this. So
great point, Ashley. And you're 100% correct. I think the best leaders or the best, individuals that are leveraging AI have that balance, right? Of, the ability to communicate, lead, just a regular kind of natural way, but then also, be able to have AI sort of empower their thoughts, their research, their thinking, their methodologies, their approaches, things like that.
Right. Okay. This is my favorite question. What is something that you have not automated with AI? It's like you totally could, but you're like, I'm holding on to this forever.
Great question. So people in this space, like I'm fortunate to speak with a lot of PhDs and really smart vibe coders and people that are incredibly like in a different stratosphere than where I am. I'm not incredibly technical, but I'm dangerous enough, I guess, as they might say. Yeah. So the vibe coders and others, and what I'll say is, they say, Mark, why don't you clone yourself? Why don't you, build, and there are companies that do that. There are agents that do that. And that's something that I don't feel comfortable doing, because even though I feel like, there's an interesting initiative there where I can put a lot of my knowledge and expertise and frameworks into an agent and say, hey, ask Mark, or whatever that might be. That's something that I'm not ready to jump into, because I feel that the human touch is very important, right? And as a business consultant, a growth consultant, an investor, a board member, you just need, like that white glove service that I've always, given to my clients, and I don't want to change that. I don't want them to talk to a bot necessarily. I just want them to talk to me.
Right. I like that a lot. And Mark, what's your parting tip for AI? What do you tell all of your clients?
So again, depending on the client, most of them have adopted it, but I'd say embrace it, right? But use it in a way that is, ethical, obviously. Yeah. Use it in a way that will make your business more efficient and effective, but don't rely on it so much that you lose the personal or human touch.
Right. Well, awesome. This was so insightful. I need to get your book. I'm struggling with some of the things that you highlighted. So thank you for sharing that. And thanks for sharing your story today.
Yeah, this was great, Ashley. Appreciate it. And nice meeting you. Look forward to keeping in touch.